Hello coin collectors out there, welcome back to the Big D Coins channel. So what I have lined out here are Philippines coins. I've got some from the 1990s, the 1980s, a lot from the 1970s, some from the 1960s, and none from the 1950s and 1940s. So I figured there must be a little bit of a story behind that. Did a little research and decided to make a video to share with you. So I'll share with you what was happening in the Philippines in the 1940s and 1950s. If you're more familiar with that, either you're from the Philippines or are a better student of history than I am, feel free to let me know if I make any mistakes or want to make any corrections or add anything in the comment section. And then we'll get into some of the 1960 and some of the 1970 coins right here. I think that's all we'll have time for, but if we have more time, we'll get into the 1980s and the 1990s as well. So what was happening during the 1940s in the Philippines? Well, the Philippines campaign was happening, also known as the Battle of the Philippines and the Liberation of the Philippines. So the American and the Filipino campaign was to defeat the Imperial Japanese forces which are occupying the Philippines during World War II. The Japanese army overran the Philippines during the first half of 1942. The liberation of the Philippines commenced with the amphibious landing on the eastern Philippine island of Leyte on October 20th, 1944. So starting in 1937 up until 1945, the United States actually made some coinage for the Philippines islands. It turns out that both Spain and the United States struck coins for the Philippines, while later while they were kind of occupying the Philippines. So Spain came much earlier, as you can imagine, but Spain issued pesos and the United States issued centavos. And those are the coins that I'm on the lookout for right here. So the main one that's out there is the 10 centavos coin, which was made from 1937 until 1945. The 1937, 38, 41, and 44, as you can imagine, have very low mintages because the war was going on at the time. However, after the U.S. took over on October 20th, 1944, then the United States started really upping the production because people were actually spending them. They weren't busy fighting each other. So in 1945, the mintages are 137 million. So that's the coin that I'm on the lookout for here. And then we transition to these ones right here, which were all just regular Philippines coins. So these are regular Philippines coins. They aren't issued by the United States. In fact, we've got a commemorative one right down here, which is a 1981, and we've got that same commemorative one right down here as well, which is dated 1979, and that's got a dual date on it. And that first date is rather significant. Here's a good color. Good look to it right here. So we see 1949 at the top, 1979, and then Banco of Philippines going around the outside. So that's when the Bank of Philippines, the Bank Central Philippines, first started to be used. Now I'm going to slide this pad over and we'll start getting into the 1960s and the 1970s Philippines coins. We'll start with the 1960s, kind of do it in the standard fashion that you're used to seeing here on the Big D Coins channel. If this is your first time to the channel, please do remember to subscribe. That's the best way to stay up to date on the various coin videos that I post on the channel. So on the right, we've got a 1963. On the left, we've got a 1960. The image on the right has a little bit of a less wear and tear to it, so that'll be the main focus on today's video. So what we see right here on the right, these coins were made from 1958 until 1966. The metal content on them, you might have guessed, is brass. So these ones have a brass metal content, a weight of 4.8 grams. On the reverse, which is the side we're looking at right here. I'll move this one aside just so we can focus in on this one right here. We see a male seated beside a hammer and an anvil. An active volcano, which is Mount Mayon, on the right, is in the background. So we see the active volcano back there. A male right here seated beside a hammer and an anvil. And this one was made, this series was made from 58 until 66. The highest year of production, which interestingly I don't have, is 1964, in which there are 100 million of them made. When we flip it over, you will notice this imagery a few times when we're looking at the Philippines coins, but this is a shield of armor, and we see a ribbon below that has a motto on it. We see lettering going around the outside, which is Central Bank of the Philippines, and then Republic of the Philippines. So that's the lettering going around the outside. We've got the shield and a ribbon right here. The ribbon on my two coins is very worn out. So these are our two featured 1960 coins. Now 1970s, the Philippines had a little bit of a break from all the occupation war that was going on, and they were able to produce much more coins. So I organized them in order of date. So we'll start with the 1972s, which are the ones all the way on this side right here. So we've got a 72, 72, 72, 74, and 79. We'll take a slow look at each one of these, but let's start with these ones right here. These are both the same coin, but like most of the coins, most of the foreign coins that wind up on this channel, one of them's got a lot more wear and tear than the other. So we've got this one right here, which has been through quite a lot, and this one right here, which is looking pretty good. This right here is the 10 centesimo coin. So 10 centesimo is abbreviated .1 PHP. These have been demonetized, so they're no longer being used, but we'll be able to describe what we see right here. So on the reverse, which is this side right here, we see Francisco Ballester. We see a left profile of him with some lettering going around the outside that translates to 10 centesimo Francisco Ballester. Then on the right side, which is this side, and to get a less worn out version, we'll flip it over to this side. We see the shield of the Philippines, so we saw that imagery before. We also see some lettering going around the outside, Republic of the Philippines, and then we've got the date. Now the year which had the highest mintage is the year that I've got right here in front of you. So in 1972, there are 121 million of these coins produced. So there are quite a lot of these that were made in 1972. There were 121 million. The previous years were pretty high as well. And that in 1971, there were 80 million, then 50 million, then 40, then 60, then 50. So the mintages, for the most part, were in the 50 to 80 million. Then we jump up to 121 million. Now moving on to another coin from 1972, we've got this one right here. However, we've increased in value by 15 centesimo, and we get this one right here. Now this one has not been demonetized, so you can still spend this as currency in the Philippines, and the exchange rate to the United States is about 0.4 of 1 cent. So it's equivalent to .0047 USD, so about 0.4 of 1 cent. And as you can imagine, you're looking at the obverse side, which features that shield that we've talked about a few times. When we flip it over, my apologies for this one being so worn out, but we see a head facing the left. And then as far as the mintages for this coin goes, 1972, again, a very high year of production. There were 90 million of these that were made in 1972. Sliding into this one right here, we're going up 2 years to 1974. Now this one has been demonetized, but let's take a look at what we've got for details. So this is 25 centesimo, abbreviated .25 PHP. And we're looking at the excuse me, this isn't the 25 centesimo. I'm going to have to come back to that. The 25 centesimo is this one right here. So let's talk about this 25 centesimo. And if we have time, we'll get back to that previous one. Sorry, you got my coins confused. Now we were on to the 25 centesimo. You can tell it's 25 centesimo because it's got that right here on the obverse of the coin. This coin was made from 1967 up until 1974. As I started to say, it has that value of 0.4 of 1 cent. The metal content of this coin is a copper, nickel, zinc. Got a weight of 4 grams, so about a 0.8 of a gram higher than a United States penny. As far as the mintages go, 90 million that were made in 1972. On the reverse, we see a head facing the left, which is right there, as you can see. We've got Juan Lina, or Juan Luna, right down here. So the name of this guy right here, 25 centesimo, which is face value of the coin, and then Republic of Philippines going around the outside of the coin. Now the back's a little bit more interesting. So we've got 2 dates. Now 2 dates usually indicates that it's a circulating commemorative coin. That's not the case here. So they made this from 1967 up until 1974. So this one came out in many years. But what this is commemorating, it kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier on our search for the 1944 coin from the Philippines is that the 1949 is when the Central Bank of the Philippines was established. So they switched over from using United States coins at that point back to their own currency, and they were able to bank and regulate themselves without the assistance of the United States because they were just occupied. All right, so that's what we've got right here for this 1979. We'll skip talking about this 1974 5 centesimo. Maybe we'll get another video about that at some point. But we were able to look quite a lot at this 1972. This is a 25 centesimo. We've got two centesimos, two of the 10 centesimos from 1972. And we've got some of the 5 centesimos from a little bit earlier in the 1960s. However, the quest for the 1940s and the 1950s centesimos remains in place. So if you've got some of those coins, congratulations. I'm going to keep looking for them, keep looking at my local coin shop and trying to get some nice coins. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're still watching at this point, please do subscribe to the channel. Enjoy and have a great day, everyone.